Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors China webinar series on what you need to know about investing in the Chinese market. The whole point about this webinar series, which is a 5-day webinar series, well, it's all information broken down into 5 days, is about how to set up a company in China and what information do you need up front in order to be able to give information to a corporate service provider like myself. It's all going through the critical key considerations and decisions that you have to make when going into the Chinese market. So today we're going to be talking about business activity and company name. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about investment capital. Wednesday will be about choosing the right location. Thursday will be about appointing individuals in your structure. And Friday, we're going to be talking about opening corporate bank accounts. Hi, Biden. Thanks for messaging. So how does this webinar series work? Okay, so first of all, for those of you that are already on, the presentation today is going to be recorded. You can probably already see a red button in your control panel. It is a recorded session. However, this is the first time I'm never doing this, but because people have been misusing information that I've been sending out, I will not be distributing today's presentation, and I will not be distributing any of the slides from this week. However, I am offering people to jump on a 15-minute call if they want me to recap something, if they want me to go over certain details or clarify something that they did not understand. And anyway, people can always look back at the recording that will be up on the YouTube channel. Now, what I do want and what I hope is that the audience that I have today, and I do see a lot of names in here with people I've actually already started discussing things with, which is fantastic, are those of you that are already in that phase that you want to set up a company in China. You have educated yourselves, you have done your research, and you are at a stage where the forces are pulling you to actually think about incorporating an entity in China. That's the whole point of this webinar series. If you're not at that stage yet, this webinar series might not be that useful to you. But I'm still going to go through what I normally do at the beginning of all my presentations, which is to understand who you are, okay? So based on setting up a company in China, are you a newbie where you are actually, you've got an opportunity at your fingertips, you're trying to educate yourself on what is the best way to protect yourself, and as a consequence, you're on here because you need to understand what decisions you actually have to make. You're at a stage where you really don't know anything and you have to know something in order to be able to set up that company. So type in newbie if you are a newbie. If you guys have garnered a certain level of education yourselves and you've already been transacting in China for a period of 1 to 3 years, and now something is pulling you at the core or something has developed in your business saying, I need to set up a company, then type that in, say Startup China. You've already transacted there and something is pulling you in that direction. Justin, you're a startup because you've been transacting already and something's pulling you to the core. I already know that about you. So guys, type that in because it gives me a bit of an understanding on who is on here, okay? Experienced China hands are usually those of you that have had already some form of experience in China. Either you've operated a company or you've incorporated a company and you're now working for a new organization that's looking to set up in China, okay? But you're an experienced China hand from the perspective of having a certain level of knowledge. So I'm going to throw names out there. Derek, Frankie, Harry, Ken, Mark, Pascal. These are all names I'm not familiar with. So I'm putting you guys in the spotlight. Jackie, Sophie, Tanya, let me know who you are. Are you a newbie? Are you a startup or an experienced China hand? Now, how does the webinar work? So first of all, technical issues, okay? I do not have any other staff member that is on here with me controlling this. So when I am speaking and presenting, unfortunately, I cannot help you if you are running into technical issues. Just remember that there is the recording and it will be up on our YouTube channel as soon as I get the video converted, okay? Which does take a bit of time. The issue will be more if I have technical issues, which at the moment I may have, because internet is going in and out. If I do get kicked off of my internet, give me 30 seconds to 1 minute to come back on. I will be coming back on to finish today's presentation, okay? I will be providing all of the info. I do want there to be an interactive Q&A. So while I am educating you today, ask questions. This is a complimentary webinar. Ask all the questions you like. I am not leaving today's webinar until I have answered all the questions that are posted, okay? Obviously, if you would prefer to have a one-to-one conversation, absolutely, I'll give you the details of how to do that and book something in with me at the end of the session. But this is 60 minutes of your time spent. Use it wisely, ask away. And honestly, when we're talking about China, there is no dumb question. Every question is a smart question, okay? So don't be shy, ask away. I want this session to be as interactive as possible. I will be highlighting things throughout today's presentation where I will be asking you to interact with me, to give me your feedback, to give me your experience, okay? We want this to be as interactive where we can also learn from each other. So I've got a real mix of people that are on here today, with Ken, who's a newbie, Justin, who's a startup, Mark, who's between a newbie and startup, and Julie, who's a startup. So it's really, my assumption will be that most of you are in this newbie startup phase, okay? Again, you will get more out of this if you do interact with me, all right? So this is the agenda of what we're covering today. We're going to be talking about the importance of business planning. We're going to be talking about setting up a company, the types of legal entities, business scopes, and choosing your company name, okay? And throughout the presentation, I will be giving you tips on, well, more like maybe action plans on what you can take away from this, okay? And my biggest question to all of you at the end of today's session will be, what were your takeaways from today? All right, give me that feedback, all right? So why am I speaking? Well, who am I, first of all? So my name is Christina Kohler-Coluccia. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I am not using my camera today because my internet is not stable at the moment, so it's my fault. My bandwidth is not all right. But here is a picture of what I do look like, so you can put a kind of a picture to the voice. What is my experience? I have been 17 years residing in Shanghai, and I'm one of the leading experts now on inbound investment into China. That is my specialty, that is my expertise. I have been in the corporate services and compliance sector for 17 years since I arrived in Shanghai. I have helped over 500 international, I should probably update that number, 500 international companies with their market entry advisory, their implementation, and then focusing as well on their growth in their Chinese market. And I'm also the creator of the China Roadmap methodology. The China Roadmap methodology is a journey that I put clients on to give them all of the action plans that are necessary to protect the back end of their operations in China, protect themselves as entrepreneurs and leaders, so that my clients, have the ability to focus on growth and decision making, which is critical in such a fast-paced market like China. Now, every month I do a webinar on the China Roadmap method. It's a workshop. I encourage you all to attend. The next one will be on November 10th. Here is the link. Alternatively, you can go to the website at woodburnglobal.com/events, and you can also register for that, all right? It gives a lot of free information really about all the different types of action plans you should create to protect your business when going into China. All right, so let's start today's presentation. And the first topic we're going to go into is business planning for China. Now, why am I even bringing this up? For many of you, it might be like, well, Christina, we're at a stage where we want to set up the company. We already have our business plan. For those of you that have done it, that have actually put pen to paper and written a business plan, kudos. Congratulations. I'm extremely proud of you. In fact, tell me, if you have written a business plan, please type that in. Say, yay, business plan, or BP. Yay, BP. I would love to hear whether you have actually done that, okay? Right now, there's a lot of silence. Nobody is typing. That worries me. Does that mean you guys haven't actually written a business plan? All right, Mark says yes, but for a specific type of business plan. All right, not a problem. You've done it for a distributor model, okay? I'm making the assumption that you're on here because you might want to change that. You've already put pen to paper on something, which is fantastic. For those of you that have not written a business plan, why am I putting emphasis to this? I'm putting emphasis to this because without a business plan, you cannot make decisions. You cannot make decisions in your growth stage, okay? You can't even have a vision on growth. But more importantly, if you want to attract investors or even just simply employees, you need to be able to share a vision of how your company is going to grow, not just in the short term, but in the long term. And without putting pen to paper, you're not going to attract the investors and you're not going to attract the employees in China. Because attracting highly qualified and skilled workers in China requires you to share a little bit of your business plan to convince them that you are worth changing jobs for. Okay? So if those of you are looking to set up a company and you're looking to hire a team of individuals, you've got to know what information you're going to share with them. That should be a homework piece. Put that down on paper, a bullet point list. What are you going to share about the vision of your company? What clients are you attracting? What projects are you going to be working on? Not just in the short term, but in the long term as well. There has to be something put on paper, whether it's in a PowerPoint format or a simple Word document with bullet points. You've got to have something on paper to show how you are planning to grow in the market. Key chapters in your China business plan. Now, people always make the assumption that I write business plans for them. I don't write business plans for companies. However, I have the ability to write a business plan with you. I am not the business owner nor the entrepreneur, but I can sit down with companies or with entrepreneurs or with leaders to actually put pen to paper and work with you to draw up a draft business plan. But just as a reference, it should not be something that's overwhelming. I've listed here several key chapters that should be in there. It does not have to be an extensive 100-page document. It should highlight simply how you are planning to grow your business, how you're going to convince investors or even your board of directors, as well as employees that you may be looking to hire. Okay, so if you're looking for help on this, this is something that we offer, where we can go on with you on a 90-minute call and literally discuss step by step what your considerations and action plans should be for every chapter. You've got to remember that when you're creating this business plan, it is an ongoing process. It's not that you're going to create this business plan today, put it in a drawer, having convinced people, and then never reflect back on it. It is something that is going to be continuously required, amended, pivoted in all sorts of directions based on the current status of your organization, okay? But the business plan is something that you can always fall back onto in order to adapt. It has to be a flexible document in order for you to be able to pivot. And COVID-19 is a perfect example of that. Everybody has had to pivot in some shape or form with their business. And the same will be when you are creating your company in China. All right, so what is your action plan to write your China business plan? Okay, well, the first one is to educate yourself on China. Okay, that's part of my China roadmap methodology. You've got to educate yourself on your industry. You've got to build a network of individuals. Point two is you got to do your research. You've got to have data points at your fingertips in order to be able to convince people. And then you've got to hit pen to paper. And that's really why I'm doing this webinar series. Because if you are at that stage of hitting pen to paper, you've got to determine the purpose of your plan. You've got to create a company profile. You've got to understand all of the investment points I'm going to highlight in today's webinar series. You've got to think about strategic marketing planning. You've got to also explain why you care so much about this project. Why are you passionate about going into China? Okay, so again, another tip on how you should think about writing out this business plan. Okay, when I talk to people about writing out their business plan and they're at this hit pen to paper stage, I will first ask for background information. How have you educated yourself? What information do you have? What data points do you have at your fingertips that you can put into your business plan? And then let's start writing. Okay. Again, you know, people make always the assumption that a business plan has to be so proper and formal. At some point it does when you're trying to attract investors. But initially you can always have these rough drafts where you're putting bullet points in a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document just with ideas that you're throwing out, okay? Nothing has to be concrete until the point that you've done that research and you know concretely how you're going to actually perform something. So tip number one, partnering with a local market entry advisor, okay? You have to find somebody that you can trust, that you can communicate with, that you feel is giving you the right information in relation to what you want to do when entering the Chinese market, okay? To me, having said all of that, it means you need a mentor or an advisor to give you that information, to be able to be your brainstorming arm when going into the market. You've got a question, you have someone you can call to give you an answer, okay? You need to find someone. So how are you going to find someone? There are thousands of corporate service providers in China. I'm not the only one, okay? Would I love for you to work with me? I would love it, but I'm not the only one, all right? You have thousands of people you can reach out to. You've got lawyers, corporate service providers, management consultants. I mean, there's a whole variety of people you can talk to in the Chinese market, okay? The doors are opening. There are thousands of us out there. But I want to give you a couple of tips, okay? First of all, you can go to your local Chamber of Commerce in China to get the member directory list. Look up management consultant, business consultant, and you will find all the corporate service providers or lawyers, and you can reach out to them. So these are actually the chambers I'm a member of. The EU SME Center, Canadian Chamber in Shanghai, AustCham Shanghai, AmCham Shanghai. I'm also a member of the China-Britain Business Council. I'm also a member of the British Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. I could be a member of a lot of other chambers of commerce, but there are quite a few in the Chinese market that are considered as competitors to me, which is why I haven't joined them, because they also offer very similar services to me. These ones don't. These ones are very neutral in terms of referring out a number of lawyers or corporate service providers at one time if you need it, okay? But this can be a stepping stone for you. I was just doing a quick check before coming on to this webinar series, and I just randomly chose CanCham. The CanCham, you go on their website, type in CanCham Shanghai, and in Google you'll find it at the top. You click on it, you go to the member directory, it's free of charge. You won't have the contact details, but you will get all of the companies that are listed within there. So it already gives you an idea to search, go to their websites, and you'll get a contact person. So there's a lot of free info on there, okay, that you can do yourself, all right? Woodburn, we are one of those. Of course I'm gonna sell my services. We're one of those. We are a local market entry advisor. This is the whole point of this webinar series. We can help you and advise you in terms of going into the market. Now, one thing that I just want to advise in terms of corporate service providers is the following. Go with someone that has the length of experience, i.e. don't have an individual in front of you that's only been in China for a year or two. Ask them for how long they've been there, because you will get an understanding of what is their wealth of information. Please don't go with local service providers, local. The local service providers only do service. They do not offer any form of advisory, okay? Please be aware of that. That is what you are paying for. You are paying When you go with a firm like Woodburn or any of the others, or even with a law firm, you are paying for the advisory that they're going to offer, which is tailor-made to your company, okay? I am emphasizing this because the amount of companies that I've had to fix once the companies were established is tremendous. And it is predominantly because they did not want to pay for the advisory. Okay, that is normally within the incorporation service fee. Okay, I can't highlight this more. Yes, I am really pushing my services here, and I apologize for that. But it's with anybody. You can go with companies like FESCO, you can go with companies like CIIC, you can go with companies like BRCC. These are all very local service providers, but the amount of advisory is almost zero to very, very limited, okay? They will not give you any tailor-made information. So you've got to find somebody who can be that mentor, that coach, that can advise you on what you need to know when you're going into the market. Please don't underestimate that. Free education. There's a lot of ways that you can educate yourself in the Chinese market, free of charge. As you all know, I send out 3 e-campaigns on a weekly basis. People find it a lot. I don't. That is 3 pieces of material that is free of charge for you to continue education. You might not read it there and then, but you should definitely save it. I mean, I did a whole series in August about setting up back-end operational systems for companies. And if you weren't on the mailing list, you wouldn't have received those tips, that free advice. And I'm not the only one that does it. There are thousands of corporate service providers that have free newsletters, free publications. Lawyers have that. Usually the first meetings are always free of charge. You can go to your associations in country or in China to even get more information and network. And today, I'm very proud to announce that the EU SME Center has now officially issued their first newsletter, and they are now in phase 3. And on their website, they even have free market research reports. So there is so much free education that you can get from people. But just choose the right partners that you're going to work with, okay? Work with somebody that you're comfortable, that you can communicate with, and where the information is transparent. Tip number 2 is on market research, okay? So 1 was finding a local person who can advise you and act as your mentor / coach and help you to implement the right structure, as well as continuing that education that you should be continuously doing. And the second tip for today is market research. You cannot go into the Chinese market without data at your fingertips. A lot of the people that are on here today that I have actually had conversations with, you have already started transacting in China. Either you've got opportunities that have fallen on your doorstep, or you have simply transacted and you see that the volume of your business is increasing. Okay, that's already research. Okay, you must be on the right track in terms of marketing, product testing, whatever it might be. Okay, but there is so much other research you can do to have more data points, whether that's brand awareness, competitor benchmarking, price benchmarking, okay, loyalty, satisfaction and loyalty analyses. There are so many different types of research you can do that should also be continuous, regardless of this pre-investment stage. Once you have that entity, it should be something that continues as well. These are the types of research that people do, everything from interviews, focus groups. Now, you might all say, well, we can't travel to China right now. We're blocked, right? Borders are shut. But there are companies that offer you these types of services. I always say, weigh out the cost of a flight ticket, hotel room, and domestic travel versus outsourcing to a company that's already on the ground. We've got to weigh out the balances right now, okay? Those funds for that business trip can be utilized for that research, okay? And you just outsource it to someone who's on the ground. But the research has to be continuous. So now, you found a local advisor, you've got education that's being continued, you've got research that's being continued, and now we've got to put pen to paper and write that strategy and write that plan. And this is now what you need to know about setting up a company in China. This is page 1 of the steps to incorporate an entity. Step 1 is drafting all the application documents. Step 2 is a name approval process. Step 3 is the online declaration. Step 4 is the issuance of the business license. Step 5 is the issuance of the CHOPS from the Public Security Bureau. Step 6 is another authorization from the Administration of Industry and Commerce, which is subsequent to the issuance of your business license. This takes around 4 weeks. Then you're going to go ahead and open your bank account. Nowadays, it takes between 25 to 30 working days to open an account. The two accounts, the capital account and the renminbi basic. You then move on to your domestic tax registration. Domestic, I mean by in your district, domestic, very domestic. Then we have the commercial company registration, customs, foreign exchange, and customs e-port. Step 9, 10, 11, 12 is if you are going to be trading in any shape or form, or manufacturing in any shape or form. If you're simply setting up an advisory company, advisory, i.e. consulting in some shape or form, consulting, then you're only going up to step 8. Nowadays, this whole process can take anywhere from 10 to 15 weeks in summation. These are all the steps required to incorporate a company in China. Okay? Now, these are all the documents. This is page 1 of all the documents that must be submitted online as well as in original format. Okay, there are a lot of documents that have to be submitted. This is page 2. Okay, it is intense. Is this overwhelming? I don't know. Tell me, have those slides overwhelmed you in any shape or form? I'm just gonna, as you are typing to me, I'm gonna go back and show you what it requires in terms of steps. Okay, tell me, please message me. Has this caused any overwhelming feeling about setting it up? Has the document list caused any overwhelming feeling in terms of setting up? Nobody's messaging me. Everyone's so quiet. Come on, guys. No overwhelming feeling? Am I making it sound too easy? Maybe I am. I don't know. Tell me. It's still nobody's messaging me. Oh, hopefully there's one here. All right. Ken said a little. Jackie is saying, haha, it is overwhelming. Okay. It's great to get your feedback. All right. Because I think sometimes people aren't always understanding. Now, the whole point of this webinar series is actually to highlight to you the information, the decisions you have to make at the point of when you're incorporating. Okay. So we're going to start with the first decision. What type of legal entity do you need that fits your business activity? So let's start off with what type of legal entities exist, right? So these are all the legal entities that exist in China, everything from a representative office, wholly foreign-owned enterprise, foreign invested commercial enterprise, domestically owned enterprise, joint venture, and foreign invested partnership. The last one, unless you're setting up a law firm or an accounting firm, it won't apply to you, okay? The rest could apply to you. All right, rep office is the liaison office. It's just simply a liaison office. All the others, WFI, FICE, DOE, JV, are all limited liability companies, and you're liable up to the investment capital that you're putting into the company, which is a subject we're going to talk about tomorrow. Okay, so these are the types of entities. How are you going to know what entity is right for you? Well, first of all, we're going to try and look at 3 considerations: liability, flexibility, and marketability. Okay? Liability is in relation to the entity. So if we go back, a representative office is an independent entity. It is basically, it is a dependent entity. It is dependent on the parent company to fund it, to pay for its working expenses. The representative office does not generate revenue. It cannot generate revenue. All the others are limited liability companies, meaning they are liable up to the capital that is being invested into the structure. It has a shareholder that is responsible for that entity. So that's the liability. However, limited liability companies can generate revenue. They can actually transact, okay? Then you got to look at flexibility. So flexibility basically means, do you have a structure that allows you to bid on projects, create revenue if and when needed, expand if and when needed in the Chinese territory? Representative offices are extremely limited, all right? And the last one is marketability. So, rep offices, for example, they do not show anybody in China that you are committed to the market. It basically just shows that you have a marketing office or a sourcing office, and that entity is purely negotiating, but it can't generate revenue, it can't transact, I mean, basically can do nothing, all right? So these are the first three things you have to think about when you're trying to choose the right entity for you. Think about the liability it holds. Is it flexible enough as a structure? And can it be used to market what we want to do in China properly? Okay. Then, in order to again answer the question of what is the right entity, we have to think about your business activity. Okay. And this is what is the business scope. So what is a business scope? A business scope of a Chinese company, it lists all the services that it is legally permitted to do according to its business registration. Okay, so nowadays, right, as I showed you earlier in the setup process, when we are doing the online declaration after the name approval, we need to go online into the platform of the Administration of Industry and Commerce. And under business scope, there's going to be a pull down menu of over 1,000 different types of services and activities that you may wish to perform in China. You've got to now take a piece of paper, right? I hope all of you have that next to you, and make bullet points of what you want to do. Do you want to import export? If you do, for what products? Do you want to do domestic sales? If yes, what type of domestic sales? E-commerce, retail, wholesale? Again, for what type of products? Do you want to provide service? Is it an after-sales service? Is it a technical service? Is it a management consulting service? Are you going to be doing advertising? Are you going to be doing promotions? Are you going to be an accounting provider? I don't know. There are so many different things that you may want to do in the Chinese market. And we want that business scope to be as broad as possible, okay? Now, in China, what you have to be aware of is that there is also something which is called the negative list. And the negative list highlights all of the things that foreign investors would be restricted or prohibited from doing in China. This negative list gets updated regularly. It's also been updated in 2020, where the number of activities gets smaller and smaller, meaning there are more and more things that foreign investors can do. But if you are in an area where you feel that because of the type of product or the type of service you'd be performing, you'd be in prohibited or restricted, you definitely have to check out that negative list. Because if you do fall under that negative list, it will completely change your business model in the Chinese market, okay? The business scope of a Chinese company dictates basically the type of entity that will be chosen. Why is that? Now, I hate the terms that I listed on this slide. WFOE, FICE, JV, DOE, I hate it because ultimately what you're setting up is a limited liability company. It depends on who the shareholder is, and it depends on what is in your business scope. So for a WFOE and a FICE, what it basically means is that the owner of the company, the shareholder, is 100% foreigner. For DOE, it means it's 100% mainland Chinese individual. And for a joint venture, it is a partnership between a foreigner and a Chinese, or multiple foreigners, multiple Chinese individuals or companies, okay? But what will determine any of these types of entities will be also then the business scope. So I hate, again, using the words WFOE and FICE. I prefer to immediately discuss what do you want in your business scope, because a WFOE, for example, I define it nowadays as not having any trading rights or manufacturing rights. It's purely service. And a FICE being that it's a foreign invested commercial enterprise. It has import, export, domestic sales within its business scope. Again, it's my own definition. I really hate using those terms, but if anybody Googles how to set up a company in China, they will see this terminology. So this is why I've put it in, okay? But I prefer that everyone takes a piece of paper, has a bullet point list of what they want to do in the Chinese market. Now on this slide, I've provided the templates of how to create your business scope, okay? So you have to highlight, when you are creating the activities, you also have to need to create a separate list with the products, okay? So the first one is wholesale of XYZ product, import and export related. The next one is wholesale of XYZ product plus internet retail, or otherwise now known as e-commerce. Or you can just simply have retail. Or you can go on to the next one, which is the development, manufacturing, and processing of XYZ products, plus sales, plus import, export, trade, and wholesale. The next one is more service related, investment consulting, enterprise management consulting, etc. Any form of consulting industries, right? Then you can have others that do advertising, or you have others that need accountancy in here, or business registration agent, or whatever it might be. Now, what you have to understand is that based on the business activities and the products, you may need to get additional licenses. So for example, if you are in the food and beverage, I'm going to go back my slides. If you are in the food and beverage, then you need to add an additional step here, which is to obtain a food and beverage license, which is done before applying for the bank account process. So you've got to make sure that when you write your list of activities and products, you can completely understand whether additional processes are needed for the incorporation stage. Okay? I've probably made it now a little bit more overwhelming for you. All right, but this is so important. This is the research you need to know and the decisions you have to make before setting up that company. This is what any service provider or lawyer needs to have at their fingertips to incorporate your structure. Okay, and this is something that we are more than happy to work with you with, to discuss with you and brainstorm what are the right strategies. Another thing you have to think about is if you are planning to go into the e-commerce retail sector, right? With e-commerce, you have to be able, if you're going to do it through your own website, you have to have an ICP license, Internet Content Providing License. If you're going to go and do retail, right, just simple retail, i.e. you're going to have a shop, you need to show a lease agreement of that retail space. Okay, there's so many extras you have to think about when you're creating this business activity and the product outline. Okay, but it is a homework piece for you. Now, in order to also understand what is the right legal entity for you and then what is the right business activity, you've got to simply understand a very small summary here, that representative offices, which has the lowest form of liability, but has great limitations in terms of what it can do. It cannot generate revenue. It cannot do any form of commercial activity, okay? And you also have to imagine that a rep office cannot be simply converted to a limited liability company. It's a completely separate establishment process, okay? So you have to think very clearly, because representative offices are starting to become obsolete and people are realizing that they are a waste of time. But there's still some who start off with their investigation saying, I just want a rep office. It makes me more calm, makes me feel more secure. I don't want limited liability, scares me. I don't want that, okay? So just be aware of that, okay? Do you want to generate revenue? At some point, everyone wants to generate revenue, okay? You will get into situations where you will want to do that. So here's an action plan for your business scope. Take notes, guys. Take a paper and write all the activities, products and services that you want to deal with for your Chinese company now, i.e. 2020, 2021, in 5 years, 2026, and in 10 years, 2030, okay? Because we want to create the broadest business scope imaginable, right? So that we don't have to go through any bureaucratic procedures to update it. Number 2, let's research your competitors. What a fantastic way to investigate your competitors that are in the market, or companies that may not be direct competitors, but do something similar to what you are doing, okay? So this is something that we offer to our clients as part of the incorporation, is that we'll investigate your competitors for you. Give us the Chinese name of the company or the address, or at least a telephone number that we can ring up and ask for their Chinese name, and we'll go into the Administration of Industry and Commerce's back end, and we can look at what is their structure, what's in their business scope, how much capital have they invested, who is the shareholder, how have they done all of that work. It's a benchmarking exercise for you. It gives you insight into how they have structured their entities, okay? Make your scope as broad as possible, which is why take a pen and paper and do this now 5-10-year plan, okay? And then last but not least, be prepared that the Administration of Industry and Commerce will amend, adapt, or downsize your original business scope. So what we're going to do is we're going to write it all out, write everything that you want to do. We're going to try and tabulate it when we do the online declaration, find as many of those activities as we possibly can. There might not be always a specific term, so it's our job then to find the closest term that fits that. And if it's not listed at all, we talk to the Administration of Industry and Commerce to see if we can add it in, okay? But be prepared for this back and forth communication with the AIC, that they will amend, adapt, or downsize that business scope. But the best is to start really with the broadest one possible, and then minimize as we go, in order to make sure we have everything that we want, okay? But it's a back and forth discussion. And this is also why I say when you're choosing a company to do your incorporation, you want that transparency. You don't want to go with a simple service provider who's just doing that whatever to make it as fast as possible, and then you realize the company's set up and the business scope is not what you had actually discussed. Okay, then things have to be fixed and you have to pay extra to get that fixed. All right, so do think about these things. All right, that's business scope. Those are the action plans for your business scope. Next is thinking about your company name. All right, so the first thing that I want to say to you is the following. How valuable is that Chinese company name in terms of the running and management of your company? I'm going to use Woodburn as an example. Nobody knows my Chinese company name. Why? Because I don't market it. The only place you'll ever see it is when I issue you a fapiao. That's all. Because my contracts are in English and I don't market in Chinese. I only market in the English language. So you will never really see my Chinese name. So when I was registering my company, it was really not a big deal for me, right? And I chose a name that I thought was good. I asked a few of my local friends what they thought, you know, that there was no negative connotation because you still want some good luck. And I just chose whatever was available. Okay, which is a little bit difficult with Woodburn because when you translate that literally, the whole burning thing brings a lot of negative connotation in Chinese. So I just came up with something that was not even related to Woodburn at all. Okay, I just really wanted to get the name registered. Now that's us. That's the decisions that we made internally in terms of marketing, in terms of our contracts, and with fapiaos, we don't have a choice. Okay, the name has to be on there. All right. You have to make that decision. Are you going to be using your Chinese company name for marketing? Are you going to be using it on contracts? Are you going to be using it on name cards? Are you going to be using it for different types of things? Okay, that's the first decision-making point you have to make. Then you have to follow certain naming guidelines, okay, that I will touch on briefly. naming guidelines such as you can't use numbers, you can't use symbols, you can't use any country name like United Kingdom, United States of America, America, Germany, France. You cannot use any of that in your name, okay? In the actual name, i.e. Woodburn, okay? You can't use it in that 3 to 4 letter character, okay? Can't use symbols, numbers, Arabic symbols. It has to actually be the characters that you're choosing, okay? So what is the format of the name going to be? So if you set up a limited liability company, it's going to be company name, business type, which reflects the business scope, the situation, company limited. Woodburn, as a little translation, is Woodburn Management Consulting Shanghai Company Limited. Our chops are generally bilingual, meaning there's the Chinese name and the English name. And on the English name, you'll see Woodburn Management Consulting Shanghai Company Limited. Okay, but can you also see here? All right, I'm hoping that it makes sense. Business type reflects to the business scope that you are outlining. Okay, so business scope is step 1, because then you define the name and the business type. So why is it important? Because if there is ABC Management Consulting, but actually you want to set up ABC Engineering Consulting, well, there might be already an ABC Management, but there won't be an ABC Engineering. Okay, it reflects to the business type. Yeah, so think about that very carefully when you're doing your business scope and how it will also impact your full company name. All right. So questions to ask yourself. All right, how important is the Chinese name to you? Are you looking to have that Chinese name act as a brand in China? Then we're going to touch on trademark brand registration versus domain registration versus Chinese company name registration, all right, because that can get complicated. And do you need this name to build up a certain level, a certain image, a certain level of importance? Does it have to be, does it have to connotate something very important? So to give you an example, I had one client who, in the end, none of the names were getting registered. I had recommended to them to get a feng shui master, a good, these good luck masters in China, to help create names, because not only were they getting rejected by the Administration of Industry and Commerce, but the company already had a team of people on the ground, and these team of people didn't like the names at all that were being proposed. So they got a feng shui master. The employees worked with that feng shui master. It was a fantastic activity to get these employees involved in the creation of this name. I think it garnered a sense of loyalty and trust that, again, is fantastic when you use your employees to this type of ability. So do think about it carefully. So action plan. Chinese language is the only name that is registered in the government bureaus. Okay, so you need to concern yourself about the Chinese name, but also think about the image level. Do you need that or not? The company name must be different than any other company in your same kind of business, i.e. business scope. Cannot be matching. Okay? You have 2 approaches. One, you can choose a descriptive name, or you can pick a name that has absolutely no meaning, but produces the sound of the parent company name. Okay? So think about that very carefully on those 3 points. I would definitely approach native speakers, right? So if you already have employees on the ground, or you have a network on the ground, ask for their opinion, ask for their suggestions, or contact a branding company, a marketing company that can help you with that, or a feng shui master as well, okay? And then when you've chosen your names, you can do an initial review to see whether they are available and to see whether there are any conflicting existing names before you have actually submitted the application. So it helps you to also save time. Now, very, very important. The process of registering your name for the company setup has absolutely nothing to do with your trademark registration, which has absolutely nothing to do with your domain registration. Obviously, everybody's wish is that the name of the company matches the trademark registration brand that then also matches the domain registration, right? That's everybody's wish. But because these applications, these three applications are all separated, it does not match, okay? And in some instances, you won't have things that match. So you've got to do the name for your company setup, you do your trademark registration name, and then you do the domain registration name. All right. And hopefully, crossing fingers, everything will then match. Final tips to follow. When you are creating your business plan and when you're doing the steps of creating this list of business activities, products, and services, or when you're coming up with the list of your Chinese names, don't rush, okay? Don't throw it haphazardly together because you're in a rush to set up your company. Do your research and take your time, okay? Don't rush. You will spend more money on fixing things later on if you're not happy with them. Be conservative when you're creating your business scopes. Be conservative. Think about everything, right? Enthusiasm is great, but when results, when they don't pop up, it's very disappointing and deceiving. So when you're creating your business plan and then ultimately your business activity list, give yourself some wiggle room. Really, really think about everything. Brainstorm with alternative parties so that you can really go through that in detail. And then monitor, evaluate, and reforecast. So when you have your business plan, don't put it in a drawer. Make sure you continuously update it so that when crises happen, you can pivot very easily and update your business plan and show it to your team and you show it to your investors. It's the same with your business scopes. If additional licenses are required, but you're not at a stage where you need that right now, create a point in your business plan so that you have a timeline when those things might be needed so you can budget for it and you know that that's going to be popping up, all right? And be aware of that. So before I move on, I would love to hear your takeaways. What have been your takeaways from today's session, specifically on business planning, on creating your business scope, as well as on choosing a name? If you can give me one or two takeaways, that would be amazing. It would give me a little bit of a summary to understand what you've learned from day one of today's presentation. Again, everyone is very quiet. Great, Julie, I appreciate that. The name and the link to the industry, absolutely. Julie's also mentioned looking at what our competitors' business scopes or business licenses might look like. Tanya is saying, I appreciate the structure and what type of legal entity, I'm guessing, is what you're looking at. Ken is saying the basics of actually just getting started, clarity of the different types of entities. Absolutely, Ken. Please do share with me, what have been your takeaways? It's great for me to know this. I appreciate Julie, Tanya, and Ken getting to me. Jihong is saying choosing a name without conflict. Absolutely, that's critical. Jackie is saying the various types of company form that they could establish in China. Hari is saying the business scope activity and the spent time. Absolutely. So how can we help you at Woodburn? Well, first of all, obviously, it's with the education and the advisory, right? So one thing I'd like to highlight is if you really liked this series, if you liked today's presentation, please join us for the next 4. Because my assumption is that all of you that are on here today are at the stage of setting up your companies. So join in on the next 4 sessions because I will be going through all the other points that you have to make decisions on to create your entities. The next is obviously on market research. If you need help on getting data points, reach out to us. If you want to sit down and create your business plan and budget and you need help getting that, getting over that first hurdle of putting pen to paper, reach out to us because we can create a 60 to 90-minute session to get you started to create that plan. We might even get it done in 90 minutes. We can also help you with the trademark registrations, domain registrations, if you're looking into that and you haven't done that yet. And then obviously we can help with the actual incorporation of the structures and obviously all the ongoing implementation and growth services. So this is how we can help you. Now, if you guys want to set up a 15-minute game plan session, right? What are the next steps that you should be taking in terms of incorporating your entity in China? You can book in my diary here. I'm going to send out this link in the chat section so that you have it. And you can book a meeting directly in my diary. Just to create a game plan. What should be your next steps when you're thinking about incorporating in China, all right? Otherwise, add me on WeChat, all right? If you want to have a one-to-one discussion on WeChat, we can also do that. There's my WeChat. You can also email me. I'm putting my email address in here, and then you can also connect with me. There's a lot of resources that we publish as well. I also have on WeChat a community that I've set up of existing clients. It is a community of potential clients, of companies that are interested in going into the Chinese market. And basically, it's a way for everybody to meet each other, start building up your network and ecosystem. You get updates, legal updates, tax updates, our own webinar updates and publications and whatnot all through WeChat. So if you're interested in that, add me on WeChat and then just say China Roadmap and I'll add you into the community. So I'm going to leave it up to questions and answers. And I think there was a question from Julie who's saying, is there a limit on the amount you can choose? Julie, I'm making the assumption you're referring to the business scope in terms of the activities. There is actually a limit. So when you're doing this online declaration and you're choosing the activities, there is a word count. So how to get around that is, first of all, we do the online declaration. What we will ask you is, what are your priorities in terms of the business activities? We list those priorities from top to bottom. And then what we can't get in will hopefully be the ones that are the least priority. And we will then have a one-to-one discussion with the Administration of Industry and Commerce to see if we can add that in after the online declaration is approved. So yes, there is a limit when you do the online declaration, but the question then after is whether we can get those additional ones added in the one-to-one discussion. Jackie is asking, is there any agency you could kindly recommend to transfer the turnover revenue we have in China back to the UK? There are too many restrictions in China in terms of transferring money abroad. Are you referring to the fact that you have your own entity in China and you are looking to get that money back to the shareholding company? Or are you referring that the money is sitting at clients' bank accounts and they're looking to get that out? Maybe Jackie, you can clarify on that. Ken is asking, for competitive research, is it for US-based competitors who are now selling in China market or China competitors? So when I am talking about the business scope competitor benchmarking, this is for companies that are already established in China. So your competitors that are in China, and we do the background check on them with the Administration of Industry and Commerce. So it's for that. If you are doing competitive research, i.e. you're doing market research, for me, it would make sense more to do market research for your competitors, whether they're from the US, from Australia, from the UK, from Europe, that are doing business in China. It's that type of research. Jackie's just added in from our own China branch back to the UK. So Jackie, we can offer you that service. It's actually a training. What are the step-by-step procedures in order to get the funds out? And then if you would like us to physically do it, we can do that as well. But sometimes it's better that your own accountant does that, as they have the relationship with the tax bureau. But if they would need advisory on how to go about doing it, we can help you on that. Pascal was asking, is China expecting that the company is performing all activities in the business scope after a certain period? Absolutely not. Pascal, there could be some items in your business scope that you decide never to do. The idea is just that you have a business scope that is as broad as is possible, so that, and again, as broad as possible, thinking down the line, right? And that you are planning on adding in. So let me give you an example. Let's say you want to, at some point, let's say you're doing import export right now. This is actually a story of many clients right now that I have. Right now, I have a lot of clients that have limited liability companies that are purely sourcing in the Chinese market, and they have teams of people in China that are purely sourcing. But now they want to get into sales, okay? So when I talk to them, I say, okay, well, I think that the first step we have to do is to do an analysis of your business scope. Is there any activity inside that is for domestic sales? If not, then we have to update your business scope to add all of the domestic sales activities, whether that's wholesale, retail, e-commerce, okay? If that was already there from day one, fantastic. It means that tomorrow you can start those activities. But nobody is forcing you to actually perform those activities. All right, Pascal, let me know if I answered your question on that. But can I just make one more comment on that aspect? There is no point, for example, putting retail into your business scope if you're not planning on operating a shop tomorrow, because you do need to show a lease agreement. So again, when you are creating your business scope with your advisor, the idea is that you are analyzing what additional licenses or criteria are required for certain activities. And then it's a decision-making process whether those that have additional criteria, whether you're going to do it immediately or whether you're going to do it in 5 years' time. If you're planning on doing it in 5 years' time, we add those criteria in 5 years' time. Otherwise, you're paying a rent on a retail space for 5 years that you're not even using. Okay, so that's the type of analysis work that goes into making your current business scope, but knowing what you want to do in the future and having that timeline of when things should be added in. Are there any other questions? There is one from Derek. So even we know the process how to set up the company, but we still need a local accountant to prepare and provide all the paperwork to the related parties in China, right? No, Derek, you don't. Basically, if you have somebody in-house who knows how to do the process and knows how to do all the submissions and knows how to do the negotiations with the various government offices, then you can do it yourself. There is no requirement to outsource it if you don't want to. The question is just, do you need that additional advisory, or do you have all the information at your fingertips that you can do it by yourself? Derek, let me know if that answered your question. All right. Anybody else? That was the last one that popped in. So guys, let me know if you want to book in a session, if you would like to have a one-to-one, reach out to me by email, add me on LinkedIn. It's great to connect on LinkedIn. I post daily. If you want to connect with me on WeChat, or if you want to join our WeChat, our China Roadmap community, let me know as well. Jiong is asking, do we have to file the ICP after the incorporation is registered? Yes, you do. So Jihong, if you register in Shanghai, for example, there are 2 types of ICP licenses, and we will have to take a look at what ICP license will fit you best. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you're talking about ICP or IP. Trademark registration can be done tomorrow. It can be done at any point. It's not related to the incorporation of your company. Ken, appreciate you joining. Happy to know that you learned a lot in today's session. And again, guys, if you've got any questions, I'm going to be hanging on. Remember, get ready for tomorrow and the rest of the coming days, because we do have 4 more sessions. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how to calculate your investment capital, which relates to how you're going to create your budget. We're going to talk about the right city to be in for you, how to appoint the right people in the structure, who can you appoint. And then on Friday, we're going to be talking about opening the corporate bank account. And there are new regulations that have been published or have actually been put in practice since August of this year. So stay tuned for all of those. If you haven't registered yet, go to our website, woodburnglobal.com/events. And then connect with us. So if you do want to join the WeChat China Roadmap community, add me. I've got my WeChat ID right here. And it'd be great for you to be part of the community. So that was the last slide. So guys, thrilled to have you on. Again, remember, the session is recorded. It's going to be up on the YouTube channel. I'll be sending everyone the link, but I will not be sending out the slides for today's session. I appreciate all of you that have joined live, and I hope to see you guys soon. Jihong, you just were rushing to type something, so let me help you on that one. We are filing IP for product names. Shall we wait until all IPs are approved to file the ICP later? Well, the ICP can only be filed once you have your company set up. So IP can be done now. ICP is an additional license once the company is registered in China. I hope that explains that. Okay. Okay, great. Again, I'm gonna unrecord now, but if anyone does have extra questions, type it in. I'll be staying online. And if you guys want to, type in how to reach out to me or anything like that, I'll stay on as well for a little bit. So appreciate you all joining. Take care and hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye.